Ladies and gentlemen, we are live. It's time!
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Geeks and Noobs podcast. I am your host, Super Beard Vince Hoover, joined as always by Kel Cobley and our very special guest this week, Comic Punk Guy. Ladies and gentlemen, we would like to apologize for last week, but health and travel and everything else made it impossible to do the show, but we are back this week, and boy, do we have some big news. But first off, once again, I would like to welcome CPG to the show. My good friend, I've been seeing a lot of you lately, and I'm loving every second of it. How are you doing, sir?
Pretty good. Really excited about all the news that came out this week for comic book related media. There's quite a bit.
Yeah, it's been pretty crazy. But you brought something to my attention that we're going to start the show with before we get to our... If you are on YouTube and you saw this, which first off, if you are on YouTube, please hit that like button, please subscribe, thumbs up, the whole nine. If you are on Twitch, please hit that follow, and if you're feeling ever so gracious, please subscribe. Also, if you have Amazon Prime, Jeffrey Bezos will pay for it. You can use your Prime subscription. It will cost you nothing. Make the billionaires pay for it. That's how this works. But earlier today, you sent me a wonderful video over what has to be the single greatest piece of meta movie merchandise that has ever existed in the history of all time. And I say that with zero hyperbole. Because if you saw the Miss Marvel series on Disney Plus, we found out that Scott Lang, Ant-Man, had taken everything that had happened to him and kind of turned it into a bit of an influencer kind of thing. He created a podcast as well as became a #1 best-selling author. The book was called Look Out for the Little Man by Scott Lang. That book, and not as a prop, but an actual full book of Scott Lang's life, is now available for pre-order, and my God, do I have to get it.
It's gonna be a must own.
Yeah,
absolutely. It'd be really great to read that before Ant-Man and the Wasp or Quantumanium comes out, if it comes out in time before the movie's released this month. And
yeah,
by the way,
yeah,
I've been fighting a sinus infection, so that's why I sound a little rough tonight, guys. So just bear with me.
it's all good. We just appreciate you being here, Tommy, my boy. What is up? Thank you for coming in the chat. Appreciate that very, very much. Yeah, I want this book so bad. Like, the fact that it is fully written from Scott Lang's perspective, it is his take on what happened, it is his whole life experiences as an engineer turned convict, turned ex-con / father, becoming an Avenger, the whole Infinity War an Endgame scenario, everything. And the only thing that's going to be better is getting the audio version of the book where Paul Rudd reads the book, which is what he's doing in that clip.
Oh, I'm definitely resubscribing to Audible for that.
Ginger Ninja is in the chat as well. And he says he loves pie. He's also probably saying that while he's naked in his garden tub, which is what he told me he would be doing. Which, by the way, ZPG, if you have a few minutes after the show, he would like to chat with some things. Some kind of big news on our sister channel front has come up. That's pretty cool. So
Cool.
So we'll do that afterwards. Kel, we will let you rest. It's bad enough I'm going to make you talk for an hour, but we'll figure it out.
Oh, good.
Yep, he has confirmed he is indeed naked in his garden tub. So we all have that image in our head now.
I'm gonna grab my bleach and bleach my ears and my eyes.
So as we
Even though I
move
didn't
on and
see
live
it.
with that, but yeah, I mean this book is so cool. But what's also cool, and that was just a little nice little fun little thing to start the show. But what's also cool has been what happened with DC, specifically the DCU, and James Gunn has come out and revealed the first part of the first chapter of their slate of films coming up. And my God, is it incredible. And I, just so I don't get anything wrong here, I'm going to pull up the list again, which I accidentally closed.
Why would you do that, Vince?
Because I'm dumb. So there are 11 projects announced. They've also talked about, I guess we should probably discuss the stuff that's kind of like the the leftovers of the Snyderverse that are kind of still a part of all this. Because he did mention how some of this stuff is still going to be a part of it. So, Shazam! Fury of the Gods, the Flash film, which James Gunn praised as arguably the best comic book movie ever made. That's some pretty big praise coming from a man who has made some of the best comic book movies that have been made.
Agreed.
But that's all I've ever heard. By the way, every test screening of that film has come out as overwhelmingly positive.
No way, really?
Yeah, every test screening of that film from before and after all the drama with Ezra Miller has come out as nothing but positive. And the fact that after drama it's still coming out as overwhelmingly positive screams a lot for how good this film could be.
Interesting.
But we're getting the Flash, which is the point of reset. James Gunn made that very clear. This is what's resetting and setting up the whole thing. Casually Cosplaying says, which by the way, thank you for your first time chat. Heard there was like 15 different endings shown for the Flash screenings though. Well, that's probably pretty smart, to be honest. Because you know how people like to leak shit.
Yeah.
So that was probably really smart to do.
Considering that this entire slate from DC, most of it was leaked on 4chan a couple of months ago, and this all wound up becoming true. So anything to bamboozle anybody, especially in test screenings, that's more power to them. That means that probably out of all those test screenings, a very slim margin is seeing the actual ending to the movie, which will prevent stuff from coming out. Because I hate spoilers more than anything on the planet.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, it's not gonna. So before we dive further into that, also again the second Aquaman movie will be played as well. So we are getting that as well, and with the possibility of a third. What are your guys' thoughts on Flash right now because of all this drama and like insane drama with Ezra Miller?
They got to feel like they're in some sort of space where they trust that Ezra Miller has done the work to try and work back from everything. Like when we talked about it before, both of us were like, cut him. And the movie is the reset. If the movie is the reset, get rid of him due to everything that's been going on. Everything else, though, that DC has reported out and Warner Brothers Discovery has reported out has been like, oh, he's been really responsible in treatment. He's been doing very well. He has extreme regret for everything he did, and he's seeked out and gotten treatment for what was ailing him, and making him make those decisions. A lot of that is Hollywood jargon for he's doing what they told him to do. But I think that's where they have to feel like there is no possibility of Ezra Miller flying off the rails like this a second time. I would like to see whether or not he gets back into, because he was in Harry Potter, I believe, also. If he gets back in good enough graces to where they've pushed him with that, and they legitimately believe that he's made significant progress in treatment. Other than that, I don't have a big desire to see it. I didn't have a big desire to see it in the first place. Knowing that it's the reset button for James Gunn's continuity, I will see it. But it's a weird spot to be in. I never liked Ezra Miller being cast as the Flash. I thought it was a miscast from the very beginning. His mannerisms as Barry Allen made no sense. He seemed more so to be playing kind of like a version of Wally West that Zack Snyder saw broken up and said, this must be what the Flash is like.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how I feel about it. It's going to be a necessary watch for the James Gunn stuff, and that's the only reason I'm watching it, because that and Keaton.
Yeah.
But everything else, if any of the leaks for that wound up being true, where the Reverse Flash is another Barry, we've seen that on the CW. I don't want a bad Barry as the Reverse Flash, or a bad guy again. It's been done to death.
Yeah, no, I agree. First off, Super Bro Jason Hoover is in the chat as well. Sorry I missed your message, but thank you for coming in. Yes, that book is going to be amazing. I'm going to buy a physical copy, but I'm also getting the audio book, because hearing Paul Rudd read that's going to be phenomenal. Casually Cosplaying also said exactly, doing what they told them to do, but it truly matters what they do when they get out of treatment, rehab, etc. Agreed. That's...
Oh, yeah.
Yep.
Because look at...
Thanks for bringing that point up, Nick.
Yeah, a prime example of that is Bam Margera recently. Bam Margera has been in and out of rehab now for over like a year and a half. and supposedly, like, he was doing everything he was supposed to do. He finally got his head on right, and he was doing his thing and doing his rehab and really pushing hard. And then the second he's out, Steve-O puts him on tour with him to try to help him get on his feet. And he immediately starts drinking and doing drugs again and goes off on another bender. And Steve-O just cut ties with him. When Steve-O, who has lived that life and is a true example of recovery, and has bent over backwards to try to help you over and over and over again, and finally has to cut ties with you, you know it's bad. And that's my concern with is Miller really getting the help they need and taking it to heart, or is it just going through the motions and being the good actor that he is, portraying that he's getting better? That's a concern. But what James Gunn and Peter Safran said was that nothing has been decided yet. They will continue to monitor his rehab and how he is afterwards, and they will have discussions about whether they move on from him or bring him back. So the door is a little bit open now, but not fully open. So we'll see how that goes.
Probably the best way to do it.
I'm a huge Barry Allen fan. I love The Flash. I've been a Flash fan. Like, I've been reading the Flash comics forever, and then the 90s Flash TV show was one of my all-time favorite TV shows. And I was really happy when they made him the dad and Jay Garrick on the series. Like, that was really big for me. I love Grant Gustin as Barry Allen. I think he fucking nails it.
Yeah.
And I think that because of what you did,
absolutely.
What you did with that little itty bitty crossover you had where Ezra Miller showed up on the show. And by the way, Grant Gustin's Flash is the reason that the Flash in the DCU will be called the Flash. Because in that moment, he's like, the Flash? And like, cause he had no name at that time. He had no superhero name.
Oh, that's right.
No, we lost Cal for a second. He'll be back. Yeah, so there, I mean, and with the Flash series being over, I would bring Grant Gustin in as your Flash for this DCU. If you're going to continue with the Flash, bring in Grant Gustin. It's very easy. You've already talked about a multiverse with this whole series, everything coming up. It can very easily be done. So we lost you there for a second, but welcome back.
I've been a big fan of Grant Gustin from the beginning. When he was cast, I was like, he's a little bit small, but as that show continued to develop and it got better, before it inevitably took the CW turn that every CW show does.
Yeah.
He was fine. And I think that if he's got the availability and he wants to do it, man, it's an easy slam dunk. Everyone already knows who he is and what he's about. You don't have to spend a lot of time reintroducing him.
Yeah.
Which, you know, really, really benefits superhero projects because we don't have to see Uncle Ben die for the third or fourth time on screen. We don't have to see the Waynes get killed in Crime Alley again. It's all we already know what the deal is.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's already pre-established, so let's just move forward.
Jack says he likes the CW Flash. I do too. For me, the first 3 seasons were the greatest television out at the time. They were so good. It did, of course, like you said, it took the CW dive, which I think the only exception to that rule is Supernatural, and I think that was almost out of spite with CW. Like, I think CW tried to make it take that CW dive, and they, out of spite, kept going and kept doing their own thing.
Absolutely.
And I love that series. But, which, Kel, I still want to do the Supernatural watch along.
Yes.
Still want to do that.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I think that, and of course this is just speculation on our part, and if it doesn't happen, I'm not going to be mad. But, and we talked about that with fantasy booking and wrestling. You know, just because something doesn't happen doesn't mean it was mid. I trust James Gunn to cast properly. So if he doesn't go with Grant Gustin, whoever he does get is going to be, I think we'll do just fine. I also can kind of see him maybe going the route of, if they don't stick with Miller, maybe going the Wally West route of, you know, after Crisis of Infinite Earth style.
Yeah.
So maybe something like that.
That would be cool too, because again, there's you know the Barry Allen and Wally West story of becoming the Flash is similar enough that you don't really have to, you know, really retread any ground. You just kind of bring everyone up to speed on who Wally West is again.
Isn't technically their origin of powers exactly the same?
They
Yeah.
both got struck by lightning.
It was struck
Yeah.
by lightning in a crime lab. Like, he was there visiting his uncle, and
Yeah,
it happened again.
something like that.
Like,
Mhm.
yeah, like his like it was so like, it was like the laziest origin ever. Because
Yeah.
they just like, same exact thing. He's visiting his uncle, same exact thing happens.
It was
Um,
copy and paste before computers.
Jason says, I just want to see a good Raven. Well, that's kind of something when we'll get to this when we get through the list. The Teen Titans were not on this list. And I'm kind of surprised by that. But this isn't even the full list of the first chapter. He didn't release everything and his first chapter, by the way, is called Gods and Monsters, which is a very interesting title. That to me feels like the end of a story of a three-way arc and not the beginning. But like I said, we've got Shazam, which leads directly into Flash. Flash resets everything, but Aquaman will still be a part of it. So there is a chance that the rumors of Momoa no longer being Aquaman and becoming Lobo may not happen. I think that is a huge miss, if that's the case. I think Jason Momoa as Lobo makes all the sense in the world.
Oh, yeah.
But however, there is one other person that could play Lobo. That's Dave Bautista.
Oh yes, because he's done with Guardians, or he's done with Marvel after the next Guardians movie.
Yep. And he said he'll never go back because he thinks that it will tarnish Drax's legacy, which tells me that Drax dies in the film. Thanks for ruining it, Bautista. But we all knew it was happening.
Yeah.
But he also said he's not pretty enough to play like a rom-com or a lead character. But you could put him as Lobo.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
You got to give it to Dave Bautista though for definitely like not falling into the Vin Diesel trap or any of those types of things. Like he purposely deviates from accepting roles like that, to where he's the front and center action hero. He really wants to showcase that he's a legitimate actor. And I really haven't seen him in anything other than Guardians of the Galaxy and a couple of the other movies that he's popped in, and he's never really been like the main focus. He's been a character that shows up. He also won't play. He's like, if you are trying to make a movie about professional wrestling, I will not play a wrestler. He wants to really showcase acting ability that he's cultivated over the years. And I think it's an extremely smart way to do it, so you don't end up in the direct the Blu-ray, pile at the end of the day, because how many wrestlers have there been that have been in movies that are just at the bottom of the bargain bin at Walmart.
Yeah, that's one reason why I'm really excited to check out that. Is it M. Night Shyamalan's new movie, The Knock at the Door?
Yeah, Knock on the Cabin.
Because that
looks so
it looks
good.
really good.
Casually Cosplaying mentions that Twitter's been going kind of crazy, saying that he could play Lex Luthor, which would be an interesting take.
Yeah, maybe.
I actually like that a lot.
Yeah.
Like, because you got to think about Lex Luthor.
This is
think about the Lex Luthor for
events.
Yeah, think of the Lex Luthor for president run when he was getting super jacked and injecting himself with kryptonite steroids. Like, he was massively jacked, so Batista wouldn't look weird. Also, look at him in Blade Runner 2049. Think about him there.
Yeah.
Like, you put him in the right suit, and you think about, like, just watch the trailer for Knock on the Cabin and watch him being methodical and just, like, speaking very, like, monotone and low, and, like, it's creepy as hell. Like, that would actually be a great. I know it's a fan casting, but that's a pretty good choice.
That'd be interesting to say the least, for sure.
Yeah.
So that's why I love talking with Kaz, because we're mutuals on TikTok, and we're planning on meeting up at Nashville Comic-Con this year. And he's got great takes.
I think it's a really cool idea. But enough of the stuff that's already there. Let's start looking at what they're going to be bringing to the table. And the first thing, this actually has a release date of July 11th, I want to say. July 11th, 2025. Yeah. Superman Legacy. This is not an origin story, but it is instead a kind of reboot that will focus on an early in his career, Superman trying to balance his Kryptonian heritage with his human upbringing. And it's also like kind of a modern take where he is the embodiment of truth, justice, and the American way, but his kindness in the world is looked at as old-fashioned. It's also supposed to be like kind of loosely based on the All-Star Superman run, which is one of the best Superman stories we've ever gotten. Although that is not a young Superman. That is a Superman.
I was about to say,
that's a Superman's been doing it for years and almost dies.
Mm-hmm.
But also, look at Lex Luthor in that. Again, think Batista. So I think that's pretty cool. Now, I'm excited for this. I love Superman. He's my favorite superhero of all time. And the idea of kind of just a fresh start, but without it being an origin story once again, is really cool. Just catching up with him, you know, as much as I'll miss Henry Cavill, who I thought was great as Superman, I trust them to cast somebody right for the role and just to see where it goes from there. And just kind of like him starting to have that, he's been doing it for a couple years, but he's starting to like kind of question things and be like, and James Gunn has made it clear that his Superman has to weigh the issue of being so kind and also never killing. So his will truly be the big blue Boy Scout and how that fits into kind of a modernist world. So I'm really excited for this project. What do you think, CPG?
I'm all for it. I definitely want to see, you know, a little bit more, you know, pop of color and a little bit more of the big blue Boy Scout aspect of his character after enduring the Snyder Superman. I think that if you want to tell that story where he has to weigh out the options of what, you know, he is as not only Clark Kent but as Superman, look at the Earth 2 reboot they had about 12 years ago at this point. That there were two I think there were 2 volumes of it, and it was very good, and it dealt with like him, like Clark legitimately having to choose Superman and various different occupations that his Kryptonian DNA and powers would help. So it showed that he's extremely smart. He tries out for the Metropolis like professional football team. They're like, "What college did you go to?" And he's like, "Smallville." They're like, "We didn't even hear about you because I didn't play." But he's able to, despite his size, you know, do all these things, and it's a really good showcase of early Superman. And if you want to incorporate that with aspects of All-Star Superman, the movie writes itself pretty much. So I'm kind of hoping for something along the lines of that.
Yeah.
Gonna miss Henry Cavill for the aesthetics. I think he looks like Superman,
I think he nailed it,
and all that. But I'm looking forward to change and something different.
And Kel, I want to ask you this twofold. One, you mentioned how it writes itself. James Gunn is writing the film, and he's almost done with it. And he would like to direct the movie, but also he's not sure if he'll have time based on his new role as co-CEO of DC Entertainment. Would you like to see him direct it? And also, he put a poll out on Twitter, which Casually Cosplaying mentions, trunks or no trunks?
I think in this day and age, you go no trunks. Because I think the days of trunks on superheroes are pretty much done.
All right, how do I mute you? How do I mute you on here? Come on, this bullshit take. Fucking no trunks.
What you asked, motherfucker?
No trunks. What's wrong with you? We've seen no trunks. Snyder went no trunks.
I'm
How'd that
pro
work
trunks.
Exactly.
Well.
I'm sorry, I like the Snyder suit. I didn't like Snyder's take for Superman, but I like the suit.
Yeah. Casually Cosplaying says Team Trunks for life. Jason asked, do you think they'll cast a Superman of color? That's actually something, right? Like, so not mentioned in this slate, but mentioned later on in a press conference, the Black Superman movie that has been kind of like in the works, but kind of in limbo over the last several years, is still in the works and will be an Elseworld story. And we'll get to the whole Elseworlds aspect of this in a bit. But so that is going to happen, but this will most likely be a Caucasian Superman that's casted. I think CPG's dogs are getting out of hand.
Yep.
But I mean, like, do you think, like, do you want, like, as much as I trust and love James Gunn to run the DCU, I also don't want him writing and doing, which he's not writing everything, but I don't want him doing everything. You know what I mean?
Exactly, because
he's going to wear himself out
quick.
But don't forget, he did that Brightburn film, which was like a really dark version of Superman. Do you think he can do the Blue Boy Scout, which is what he's talking about, style Superman?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I think he can, because look how he's transformed Chris Pratt's Star-Lord from a Ravager scoundrel into a Boy Scout looking. I have the words.
I got it. I know your damn words, all right?
Thanks, Vince. But anyway, yeah. I mean, because, Star-Lord in First Guardians was very scoundrel-like. And, but in the trailers we got so far for Guardians 3, he looks like he's trying to be a Boy Scout and help people throughout the galaxy. So I think he's going to be a very smooth transition.
Casually cosplaying throws out there. If Gunn doesn't direct, my choice is Christopher McQuarrie. I like that choice a lot. I am a huge fan of the Mission Impossible films, and especially the last few. I think he's done a great job with them, and I could definitely see him doing it, as long as they don't cast Tom Cruise as Superman. Because for some reason Christopher McQuarrie is currently attached at the hip to Tom Cruise. And look, Tom Cruise is as Ethan Hunt in Mission Impossible all day, every day. Don't once the next two Mission Impossible movies come out, it's his last run as Mission Impossible. Don't make any more Mission Impossible movies for at least 30 years. That's his franchise. That being said, don't make him Superman. There's not enough Apple boxes in the world to put him on to make him big enough to be Superman.
I don't. I think that Christopher McQuarrie is a Scientologist, and that's why they're attached at the hip.
I agree.
I am very much in the camp of when it comes to Superman, I am cool with James Gunn writing it. I do not want James Gunn to direct it. And the reason being is that James Gunn's style doesn't quite translate to like cheesecake Superman without it being like in my opinion, that if James Gunn made a Superman movie, it would be closer in quality to Sky Captain in the World of Tomorrow than it would be Guardians of the Galaxy. The free range that he has with Guardians of the Galaxy being a space opera is huge. He's like, the sky's the limit. Look at all the stuff he was able to do in the second one with Ego's Planet and all this other stuff, and everything looking weird and alien, because he's a trauma director that all builds off it to be able to do stuff. And when you've got something with Superman, then unfortunately there are aspects of Superman's character and presentation that put you in a box. And James Gunn is a director that works better when he's not put in a box. So if you find someone that can take the story and translate it, through direction, I can't tell you who that person is, but I think that there is somebody out there that could do that. I think that James Gunn, give him the Suicide Squads, anything that fits that 70s exploitation film type of thing, or creature features and stuff like that's where he's good at.
That's true.
If that Creature Commandos project goes from being solely animated to those characters, because they're supposed to show up in live action down the road.
Yep.
If you do that, that's the movie he directs. That's the movie that he gets heavily involved in. I think
I can see that.
On that level.
Real quick, Papa Font, first off, thank you for the follow. You got yourself a dancing penguin for it. And I appreciate you being here. You're like, get rid of Robert, no more Pattinson. I gotta disagree wholeheartedly. First off, the Matt Reeves Batman movies are going to be in the Elseworlds sections. They will not be attached to the main continuity. But I believe that the Robert Pattinson Batman we got was the best on-screen Batman we've gotten. I love Michael Keaton as Batman. That's who I grew up on. But the way he was able to command a room with his eyes only, without saying a word. And then the closing scenes of that film is the first time since campy ass Adam West that we got a superhero Batman. He is helping people out of what is the Gotham version of Madison Square Garden. He's carrying that little girl. He puts her on the stretcher. They go to pick her up in a helicopter, and she grabs his arm and won't let him go because he is the only bit of hope she has in that moment. That is the only safe place she has in that moment is Batman. The man dressed as a bat in all black is her only bastion of hope in that moment. And in that moment, I was like, this is what Batman's supposed to be. Because if you look at the Zack Snyder Batmans, take the killing out of it, which is a big problem in and of itself, but the fact that everybody in Gotham is scared of him, not just the criminals. But what that movie did was establish that the criminals are scared of him. The cops are a little put off by him because he's doing their job better than they are. But that's also a meta commentary on the current state of police things. We won't get into that. Yeah. But the fact that this was the first time we have ever gotten a true superhero, not a I'm the Dark Knight, I'm going to be a villain to the world, people are going to think I killed Harvey Dent, blah, blah, blah. No. He is, by the end of that film, all of Gotham City loves Batman. He is their hero. And that is something we have never seen since Adam West.
You have the full, the transition that eluded the Christopher Nolan series, right? Which Christopher Nolan series is the gold, was in my opinion, the gold standard until the Batman came out. Mm-hmm. It was that Robert Pattinson's Batman, since he's already been Batman for an entire year at that point, right? You no longer have to kind of bear through trudging the same kind of ground again that Nolan's Batman did for 3 movies. That this is a vigilante that the police are looking into who he is and actively trying to play a role in either trying to, Gordon works with him. And Gordon can't seamlessly work with him until he's commissioner. Yeah. But you see in this the full transition from vigilante to superhero. And Batman hasn't been a superhero
for decades.
Since the Joel Schumacher stuff. Where you have the fantastic things that are happening that are way out of this world.
Oh yeah, I kind of forgot about those.
The Batman finds the middle ground. He's the superhero. Like, you see the transition. You see it right then and there at the end when he leads everyone through with the flare and everything, and takes them from basically the darkness to the light. And just like you mentioned with the girl that won't let him go, Batman is now a full-blown superhero by the end of that movie, and not just a vigilante that people are afraid of. Like you said, the criminals are afraid. The police are tolerable. Commissioner Gordon's the link between them that makes everything work. That's true Batman. That's exactly the way it should be. I was never a fan of burning batarangs into people's chests, and straight up killing, which is an entirely different thing. Yeah. But Pattinson's fine. I was very skeptical when he got cast, and I was pleasantly surprised and blown away at that.
Yeah, absolutely.
He nailed it.
Ginger, I'm going to get to your comment in a second, but first, Casually says Pattinson is now my all-time favorite Batman and has my all-time favorite Batmobile. Reeves has quickly added to my list his name to my list of overall favorite directors. Papa Font says, I feel like we need to focus on brand new main event universe before trying to do Elseworlds animated things. It's getting way too confusing early on. Kel knows I wrote a whole plot for each of the big 7 films leading to a Justice League. But let me explain the Elseworld thing real quick. The Elseworld thing, the reason it's not going to be confusing is because they have nothing to do with it. And we haven't gotten to it yet, but we are getting a main universe Batman. So there will actually be 2 active Batman. Yeah. We're going to get a main universe Batman, and the Elseworld stuff can just go and do its thing. No one was confused when the Joker came out and it didn't attach to the Zack Snyder stuff. Because it was just its own thing. The same with the Batman.
I didn't understand why.
Well, no, that movie was confusing for a whole different reason. Because it's not a Joker film. It is a great film about mental illness that for some reason they slapped Gotham City and the Batman characters onto. Take off the DC references and all of a sudden you have what I think is a damn near perfect film.
Agreed.
But the Elseworld stuff is just that. It's off to the side. It's doing its own thing. So the Matt Reeves Batman world, Batman will be the only superhero that exists in that universe. And we don't have to worry about crossovers or nothing like that. It's just its own thing. Same with the Joker. It's its own thing. So they can just do their own thing, and that way people can be more creative and take something and not have to worry about, well, how do I connect it to this, and how do I connect it to this, and how do I connect it to this? Now, Ginger, the Ginger Ninja Jaxbo has kind of probably the best idea I've heard, is that we need a Ginger Ninja movie in the DCU, and I would agree. As long as we get Silverback Nate Slater to be your villain. And people watched the Wolfpack last night would know what I'm talking about.
Even with the Elseworlds or the Black Label, whichever because they've called it both now, is that if you're a comic book fan and you're coming from that world, then you know exactly what Elseworlds and Black Label is. So you know that it's not connected to whatever the main continuity is. At the same time, for the casual moviegoer, the concepts and the use of the multiverse, and not only Doctor Strange Multiverse of Madness and everything that kind of is going to spin out of that with Spider-Man No Way Home, general audiences were really receptive to the concept and understood how a multiverse would work. And I'll do you one better, that Everything All the Time All at Once or whatever, which I still haven't seen, which I heard is fantastic.
It's so good.
Critically acclaimed, which tells me that not only do critics understand a multiverse, but so can the casual audience that made the movie as profitable as it is. So I don't think having all these things separate is really going to be all that confusing to the average moviegoer, because they've been exposed to it already. And if you're watching only TV and you're not a movie person, the CW did it. They brought back the Birds of Prey from the early 2000s. They brought back, they put a cameo from Batman 89's universe, during one of their crossover events. So you've seen everything kind of.
They had Burt Ward.
They did.
They had Burt Ward, which, by the way, real quick side note, Burt Ward makes the absolute best dog food. He has developed a dog food.
Have you tried it?
Yeah, it's very good. What's great about it, it's really inexpensive on purpose. Like he purposely makes it. You can get it from Walmart, but it's the only dog food that's ever allowed my dogs not to smell like vinegar. Like my dogs will eat like even blue dog food, and like their skin would turn to like smelling like vinegar. But this stuff cleared up their skin. They had healthier coats, and they smelled great. Like it was awesome. Regardless, love Burt Ward. But yeah, I think that the multiverse is fully accepted nowadays, and so I think you can get away with. And the fact that they did make it clear now, because were talking Black Label for a while. James Gunn made it clear it will be called Elseworlds, but I think just the words Elseworlds gives you enough of a clue that this will stand out. These movies will literally be stamped Elseworlds. So like the poster for the second Batman film or the second Joker film will have a Elseworlds thing on them now. Like they're gonna start like actually labeling the shit, so this isn't continuity; it's its own thing. It'll probably say like when it says like DC Films, it'll probably say an Elseworlds project or something in the whatever. Like they're gonna make it very well known that these are not attached, and that way, if you don't want to sit and follow all of that stuff, you can just want to go see a Batman film. You can go see it without having to watch a bunch of other projects first that connect to it. So that is really, really cool as well. So let's see here. So we talked about Superman. You brought up the Creature Commandos, so we'll go to that one. So the Creature Commandos will be at first an animated series, but they're going to cast it with actors as the voices, because eventually those actors will play those characters in live action. Because James Gunn has made it clear that the movies, TV shows on HBO Max, the animated movies and TV shows, and even the video games will all connect. So the Creature Commandos is a group of exactly what it sounds like, Creature Commandos. It is a bunch of kind of like Universal monsters and stuff like that. There's Frankenstein and Bride of Frankenstein. There's all that stuff. Oh my God! So Papa Font said that he wants Ted Kord in live action. The Blue Beetle movie is still coming out. That is the other past project that is still on release, and that will fold into the new DCU. So the Blue Beetle movie, they are very happy with it. So that is coming out, and he will be a part of the DCU moving forward. Now, granted, this is the can't remember his name.
It's like a Miguel Reyes or something like that.
Miguel Reyes. Thank you.
Yes.
It'll be that version of him, but I believe that Ted Kord has a part in that film, or will come about. Ted Kord's going to be involved somewhere.
He better, given what else is coming.
Yeah. So Yeah, so I mean that's I forgot to mention that one. Jamie Reyes, thank you.
Yeah, there you go. That's what it was.
That's what it is. So yeah, so we got the Creature Commandos. Yeah, the Blue Beetle could be the first step to the Titans in DCU. Like I said, it was kind of weird they weren't mentioned, but again, we don't even have the full chapter 1 here, much less chapter 2 and chapter 3. So it could, you're right, it could be a step towards the Titans. And his name is actually pronounced Jaime, Jaime Reyes. But yeah, that is a way. But the creature commandos, I think, will be very interesting. It'll be cool to see. But another project that's coming, and since we've already talked about Batman, I'll jump right into it, is the Brave and the Bold. And the Brave and the Bold will be Batman learning he has a son, Damian Wayne, and training him to be Robin. So this will be the introduction to the Bat family, though. It'll be a strange sort of father-son story, but it is also introduction to the larger the Bat family as a whole. Which could mean we also get Dick Grayson, Barbara Gordon, all kinds of people. But the fact that we're getting a Brave and the Bold, which, by the way, the title is very important. Because the Brave and the Bold series in both the comics and the animated series was about Batman teaming up with others. So these particular Batman projects could very well be just a run of Batman partnership films. So like this first one may be like Damian Wayne, maybe we get Nightwing, but then maybe we get Superman or somebody else, a Green Arrow, whatever. Yes, I would love to see Nightwing Papa Font and casually cosplaying. I would love to see Jensen Ackles as a live action Batman in that.
Absolutely.
If you've seen the Batman Hush animated series, him doing the voice, he's nailed it. I know that he is 40, but he still looks like he's 28.
Mm-hmm.
I think he nails that. And if you look at the images they're using, the pictures they're using, they're actually using like all the imagery they're using to promote this. It's actually the Dick Grayson Batman and Damian Wayne run.
I was about to say that. Yeah.
Yeah. Now it is Bruce Wayne. He made it very clear it is Bruce Wayne finding out he has a son. So it will be Bruce Wayne Batman, but that image, I think Jensen Ackles nails that. I'm all on board for Jensen Ackles playing Batman in that role. Although with him getting another season as Soldier Boy in The Boys, it might be hard to differentiate him for fans. So that could be a problem.
Yeah.
Jensen Ackles is remarkably average to me. I don't care for him. I like him in The Boys because he does a fantastic impression of Chris Evans. But I just don't. That guy's never, outside of his voice work, never really done much for me. Granted, I haven't watched Supernatural because I just can't. I think I tried to watch like the first 3 episodes and I couldn't make it through them. But I only consume comic book related media for pretty much anything across the board, and old horror movies that are like C tier. So I'm not a good judge of that. I was initially very confused when they said that this is a Brave and the Bold movie with Damian Wayne and Bruce Wayne, and finding out he has a son, but all of the promotional image from the comics is from Grant Morrison's run where it was Dick Grayson and Damian Wayne. Mm-hmm. What I kind of hoped was that they're telling us that Bruce is in it and that Bruce is finding out his son is a part of it. However, I was hoping that they're going to swerve the audience midway through the movie or within the first act of the movie, where Damian shows up and Batman is completely puzzled. Then you find out within the first act that it's Dick and it's not Bruce, and they have to learn. And the reason why Dick is acting as Batman is because Bruce is missing. It gives DC a little bit more time to fine tune casting their Batman for this new universe, because obviously Ben Affleck isn't going to come back, although he's been in talks to still direct something for this new. James Gunn has left that on the table. Mm-hmm. But I don't see him coming back to play Batman. Mm-mm. But I also don't want them to rush it and either cast someone who's just like him, because there are people who did like Ben Affleck as Batman. There are people who do and people who don't. But I don't want them to rush into it. I don't really want it to be a big name Hollywood actor. Like that's half the success that a lot of the movies that have like that start off these universes have in common is that they didn't have marquee headlining actors playing all the heroes.
Yeah.
You know, it was
And
Robert
usually-
Downey Jr.'s redemption in Hollywood to play Tony Stark.
Yeah.
I was going to bring up that same point.
You know, it's
And also on that, look at Michael Keaton. You know, he was
Yeah.
a comedian that never did an action film until Batman 89, and he's one of the most beloved people that's ever played Batman.
Yeah, it also skyrocketed his career into such great
Exactly.
movies. You know, like we got Birdman out of that. We got, you know, by the way, one of my favorite Michael Keaton films of all time is a movie called The Founder, about McDonald's, about Ray Kroc and McDonald's. And I've never seen a movie where you are so rooting for this protagonist for the first half of the film, and you want nothing more than him to be successful. And then by the second half of the film, you hate this man so much and hope he dies, and he becomes the ultimate antagonist. And you have to watch the film several times to find that moment, to find the switch. But it's just so seamlessly done, and he's such a good actor. I like Jensen Ackles in that part. I'm a huge Jensen Ackles fan. But you can go a lot of different routes with it. And yeah, getting somebody who's a no name to do the role would be great as well. I actually agree with that as well. Papa Font says, I think SoFlo Cosplay should play Nightwing. No, I there's a lot you can do with it. And I trust James Gunn's casting. He's done a great job. So I'm not worried about like any of the casting that's going to come up with it. I trust him. Until he proves me wrong, I trust him. So that will be an interesting film. And I kind of see where you're coming from with the with that kind of like bait and switch. I think it would be kind of interesting. But if they don't do it, I'm not going to be upset. But as long as
it could be another indication that Pattinson's getting Robin, and that'll be Dick. Like the reason why they're going with Damian Wayne right off the bat is because if Pattinson's Batman ultimately gets a Robin, that'll be your Dick Grayson, and that way you don't have two Dick Graysons and two Bruce Waynes running around. And having the different Robins will further differentiate the two, and people be able to tell, probably other than aesthetics, you know.
Yeah.
Okay. So casually mentions I could maybe see Aaron Taylor Johnson if he steps away from the crappy Craven franchise.
Can that guy act though?
Aaron Taylor Johnson?
I mean, Kick-Ass, Bullet Train, which was not great, and
I actually love Bullet Train. I thought it was a great film, but I'm also a big fan of like those kind of Guy Ritchie style films.
Bullet Train was like it should have just been a Deadpool movie. That's what it was. Like it begged that. I think Tim Miller directed that too, so it all makes all the sense in the world.
Exactly. Yeah, I don't know that I think about it, though, because like everything he's done, I don't know if he. I mean, maybe. But armored Batman or fabric-based Batman? Fabric-based Batman for me.
Fabric.
Oh, and he meant Aaron Taylor Johnson for Nightwing. Okay, that I could maybe see.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Oh, yeah, that I'm down with, yeah.
Yeah. So another thing they've talked about, you mentioned Ben Affleck. He made it clear that Ben Affleck and Henry Cavill will not be returning as their roles. But everybody else is still possibly able to come back. They are currently speaking with Gal Gadot to see if they can maybe fit her in somewhere. On that note, there is a Wonder Woman prequel HBO Max series called Paradise Lost that takes place on Themyscira before the birth of Wonder Woman, and it will be a Game of Thrones-esque story about the life and politics of Themyscira. Is this even really Is this really even a necessary project, though? Like, it feels kind of weird.
Because if it's going to be like Game of Thrones, then I'm just like, because, you know, I loved like the first half of Game of Thrones when I started watching it. And then as the season went through, I just became less and less interested. These stories became way too predictable. I predicted to my wife that Daenerys was going to turn full psycho, psychotic, murderous well before season 8. And my wife's like, no, she's not. She's saving everyone and everything. And then when she did, it's like, how did you know? It was like, just look what she's doing. She's becoming more of a conqueror and less of a liberator through her actions. So to go into a direction like that makes me worried about the Wonder Woman legacy and what Wonder Woman could be in the new DCU.
Yeah, like I'm all for bringing Wonder Woman back, whether you do it with Gal or with a new casting, because I am all about the Trinity: Superman, Batman, Wonder Woman. Give me all three. But this feels like, because I don't like. Do we really like? Yeah, is it interesting to find out about how an island of all women came to be? Yeah, but like at the same time, like I don't know. I don't. And I mean, how Game of Thrones are you going with this? Like, I don't know about this one.
Yeah.
So
it's definitely the one project that I'm just most worried about so far. Everything else I'm cool with, but this one I'm just like, I don't know. I don't know if I even check it out. I may.
So with Paradise Lost, that brings a lot of things up for, like, in my mind of what exactly it is, because you have like there are other projects DC's done called Paradise Lost, and there are characters they can pull for that. I do not think that the entire cast of the entire show is going to be women, because there is, there's comic books out there about the men that were on Themyscira that were exiled, so you can have that factor into it. I also think that you could have the first, male representation if they don't go with the exiled males of Themyscira, and they go with a male finding Themyscira and the politics of how to deal with that. It's called Paradise Lost. Lucifer could find Themyscira, and you could bring Lucifer into the DC franchise that way. There is something that a lot of franchises have started to try to do, and no one's been able to do it. The Walking Dead was supposed to do it first, and they didn't, because the show didn't last long enough. Fear the Walking Dead, the first spin-off, was supposed to produce an antagonist in the main Walking Dead television series, and you were going to root for the survivors of Fear the Walking Dead through the entire series, and then you find out towards the end they were supposed to link up and correlate together, that a character from Fear the Walking Dead was going to be a major antagonist to the group of survivors in The Walking Dead. They never got there because the show didn't last long enough.
Yeah.
So they had to quickly kind of tie everything up and kind of push that out to the side. That was the original intention of that show. I think with Themyscira, you can do that. You can have Lucifer Morningstar get introduced into the series proper, or into the universe proper that way, if you want to go with the Paradise Lost aspect. You could also have it, Cersei. You can have, or not Cersei, Cerise. You can have Nubia. A plethora of just different characters that spin out of that corner of the DC universe. You can cultivate it in that show and have you kind of see how things get moved around, and then all of a sudden, when this character shows back up, when Diana is fully fledged Wonder Woman, and then that's an antagonist, and you have this attachment and it conflicts the audience. There have been TV shows that have tried to do that, and they just haven't gotten to the point where the villainous turn isn't something that prolongs it, it's something that's meant to end it. So if by the end of Themyscira, a supporting cast member who isn't Diana's mother and is somebody else that winds up becoming Cerise or becoming someone else, you can kind of move everything around. I think that's a way to make it interesting and different, because a straight up Game of Thrones copy wouldn't be that great. Not a copy, but it's something very similar, because it's only an island and there's no interaction with the outside world. So it's again, you're kind of put yourself in a box.
Yeah, and it's also like they talk about how the quote is, how did it come about? What's the origin of an island of all women? What are the beautiful truths and the ugly truths behind it all? And what is the scheming? And what's the scheming like between the different power players in that society? And I know there was that Phil Jimenez, George Perez run called Paradise Island Lost, which kind of explored a civil war on Themyscira. But that's really the only time that it seemed like it wasn't actually paradise there, until Wonder Woman was getting ready to leave. It was after her leaving that they started to kind of fall apart. So I don't. It feels weird to me, especially since there's no, like, yes, they are talking to Gal Gadot about possibly coming back, but there's no real work on anything Wonder Woman related for another decade, maybe. So it does feel weird that this is involved. But I mean, we could be wrong. It could end up being fantastic. Who knows? But another series for HBO Max that does look really good is Booster Gold.
Yeah.
And
I definitely want Gunn to write this because he could do so much with Booster Gold.
well, the fact that they literally call him a loser from the future who uses basic technology from his time to come back to today to pretend to be a superhero, and it's literally a show about an imposter syndrome as a superhero. And yes, we do need to see Skeet Papa Font.
Yeah.
But really, that's the biggest part. Because yes, Booster Gold is a very funny character, but there is a deep underlying mental trauma of imposter syndrome with him that never gets explored. So give me, like Justice League International vibes, but with that underlying, like, self-doubt drama, imposter syndrome with Booster Gold. And I think you have something that's going to be akin to Peacemaker as far as how good a series it can be. Because Peacemaker ended up being just beyond phenomenal. And kind of falls in that same imposter syndrome a little bit. But whereas Peacemaker never sees himself as a villain, Booster Gold is truly trying to be a hero, but he's just doing it in a way where it's like if you were able to go, like, travel through time and take the lottery numbers from a decade ago and win the lottery and be rich, kind of thing. That's what he's doing. He's kind of like, he's back to futuring sports almanacking it. Like, that's what he's doing. So I mean, I've always thought he was a really fun character to do. And I think that instead of just making it a just funny for the sake of funny show, but instead actually diving into the whole, he's a loser with imposter syndrome thing, I think it'll be very interesting. Who do you cast as Booster Gold?
Jared Kiso from Letterkenny.
Ooh.
And I only say this because I've seen Jared Kiso live out of the character of Wayne from Letterkenny. And man, does that guy have he can flip the switch real quick. I saw Letterkenny live here in Chicago before the pandemic, and it was awesome. Not only because it's Letterkenny, but because pretty much everybody from the cast, including the coach, had comedy sets as themselves in between the Letterkenny skits, and everyone killed it. Jared Kiso, I think, can do that. Can play this is really funny at first, but then there are bigger things at stake because of this. And I think him, if they pair him with Jaime Reyes for Booster Gold and Blue Beetle, him trying to play it straight as like this experienced superhero from the future, but he's just kind of just arrogant goofball in mixed of it. Mm-hmm. He can turn that switch on and off. So I think that's my pick for Booster Gold.
I do like that. So
chat really good.
Chat dropped two people or three people. Casually says maybe The Miz or Joel McHale. And Jason says Nathan Phelan. I think Nathan is too old for the role, because I think that this Booster Gold is going to be around for a long time. I think maybe even Joel McHale might end up being too old to maybe start something that's going to be a 10-year project. The Miz is actually somebody that was cast a while back as Booster Gold. And that fell through. But I don't think the Miz could do it now either.
Yeah.
I mean, that's your king in the mid card. So you really have to, like, the availability for him has got to be real tight. And the only movie projects and acting projects he gets to do are ones that WWE produces
Yeah.
to give him the time to go do it. So that's rough because that's either Miz, goes on a hiatus, which, he's the gatekeeper, dude. Most of the people that they've brought in go through him first. So unless they can find a new person for that, that's a lot. That's a big commitment. It's a big risk for him because if he moves over there and he does Booster Gold for this television show and it's bad, then he's got to figure out what the next move is. I mean, I obviously go back to wrestling, but what is there a spot for him there then by the time that happens? Because it's going to be a long process. I'm assuming they're trying to make these all multi-season shows.
Yeah, like I said, it's at least a 10-year commitment because everything that's being put out is not going to be a one and done. Like everything's going to connect to each other. They're going to be appearing other places. It is a commitment. Speaking of connecting to other places, another show is going to be Waller, about Amanda Waller, and this will be a bridge series between Peacemaker Season 1 and Peacemaker Season 2. Because of everything going on, James Gunn has not been able to write Peacemaker Season 2, even though he is writing the current Superman film. But he had to do that because they need to get it out there. So he had to put Peacemaker 2 on the back burner. But they were able to bring in Watchmen writer, the Watchmen HBO series writer, Crystal Henry, and Doom Patrol showrunner Jeremy Carver to do this series, which makes me super, super, super excited because the Watchmen HBO series was nothing short of phenomenal.
That was so good.
That was so good. Also casually mentions, what about Glenn Powell for Booster Gold, the guy who played Hangman in Top Gun Maverick? He's also playing another fighter pilot in that movie Devotion with Jonathan Majors. But I mean, maybe that would work. But I think that'd be more like if your top two choices didn't work out, like scheduling conflicts, he'd be kind of like a fallback for Booster Gold. I hate to say that, but yeah. Papa Font says, I'm excited for the Waller series. I feel like it's going to be very brutal and cross lines you wouldn't expect from comic-based things moving into live action. Agreed. This is supposedly, part of it's going to take place with Waller working with a team prior to her Suicide Squad days, like learning more about her, how she got into the role she's in, and then bridging, so it'll be part flashback, part bridging that gap with modern stuff and where she's at today. But all that matters to me is we're getting Viola Davis again.
Yeah.
I absolutely love Viola Davis. I think she is a phenomenal actress, and she kills it as Amanda Waller. And so, yeah, I'm all for it. And I don't know who you make the villain. I don't even know where you exactly go with it. But James Gunn has described, after having read the script and everything they have planned, that he describes Waller as the greatest show ever. So, no pressure.
Yeah.
No pressure. But I think it'll be good.
It's possible, too, because the Creature Commandos is going to take place in the 80s, and that's Amanda Waller, another Amanda Waller team, and how she's able to wrangle Rick Flag in the first place was that, Amanda Waller worked with Rick Flag Sr., who's on the Creature Commandos.
Yeah.
So if the flashbacks are to the 80s, and that's the live-action iteration of the Creature Commandos we're going to see, that could possibly be where some of it takes place. Or you see the various war crimes her daughter let everyone know about at the end of Peacemaker, and that's what the modern stuff is. As soon as I saw that it was announced, I figured this is going to be Peacemaker 1.5 to try to bridge between the seasons. And I'm excited for it. Viola Davis is by far one of the best castings to come out of the Snyderverse. Was where they kind of nailed it, and I'm excited for that one all around. I think it's going to be a lot of fun. I think it's going to be a lot of Amanda Waller's done some icky shit in war crimes, man. That's what I think it's going to be. Is just she's going to be responsible for some really sick, stupid, bad shit that happens.
Yeah. Also, Papa Font mentions, as far as the flashbacks, I feel like it could be a great tie-in to also recasting files on all the big characters without total info. She's just dipping her toes into what the supers are coming in, which is a good point as well. That could very well do it. Another series coming to HBO Max, and this one I'm super excited about, and I know Kel is super excited about, is The Lanterns. This will be Hal
Yes.
Jordan and Jon Stewart in a True Detective style show where some massive thing is happening. Now, it's all going to take place on Earth, even though they are the Lanterns. It's all going to take place on Earth, but there is some kind of like cosmic evil entity in the background, in the shadows of Earth, and they're going to come across it and figure it out and have to fight it. And there's, even though it does confirm just Hal Jordan and Jon Stewart, there is a good chance we see other Lanterns as well.
Mhm.
We need something. Because the characters for Green Lantern are so good and yet have gotten such a terrible, terrible run in live action. I don't even want to discuss the Ryan Reynolds Green Lantern film. I don't want to provide any PTSD for anybody, so we're going to let that go. But, like, the fact that we were supposed to get them in Justice League and it didn't happen, we just got kind of a tease of it. I like the idea of going that, like, True Detective style route with it.
Yeah, I do too.
Almost to the point where maybe cast Matthew McConaughey as Hal Jordan. I'm just kidding.
Too old, man.
But, like, yeah, he is.
Yeah,
He is.
yeah, I mean,
but also, like,
if anybody's aged out, it's him.
yeah. But I think this would be a really cool series. Although, you know who I do want in it, which, you know, Papa Font says, give me Rainer. I want Guy Gardner. Give me Guy Gardner in that series as just the straight up punching bag, like everybody makes fun of, nobody likes. Like, just that kind of skeevy detective that's around every now and then that they just kind of have to deal with because he's there and they can't find a reason to fire him because he's not done anything to get fired, but nobody likes it. Like, I want Guy Gardner in this.
Yeah.
Even if it's just one episode.
I think casting for this is going to be really crucial on how it works out. I haven't seen the guy they had playing. So like I'm pretty sure that most people know by the end of the Snyder Cut when the Martian Manhunter shows up. That was originally supposed to be Jon Stewart.
Mm-hmm.
It was not supposed to be the Martian Manhunter. And the first hint of, you know, that Superman isn't the only alien around was going to be Jon Stewart thinking like you think he's the only one, and that was what your main concern was, you know, all through Batman versus Superman.
Yeah.
And the guy that they had, holy shit, in the little picture that Zack Snyder teased, that's Jon Stewart. That looks like Jon Stewart. Hopefully the guy can act. If he can, that's your guy. Because, man, he's got the looks, and if he can act, he can do it. Casting Hal Jordan is really difficult because there's a lot of people that'd be really good, but they're on the older side of things, and this is going to be another commitment project. Before, when the Green Lantern HBO Max series or the Green Lantern Corps was announced, they had cast Guy Gardner as I can't remember his name, but he was the bad guy in like season 4 of American Horror Story. Never really a big fan of that. I like the idea of a Green Lantern Corps series and having it be like, you know, space cops. And now that we're getting something more akin to True Detective on Earth, I would like personally to there be a set of like kind of like murders or something where, as far as John and Hal know, the only thing that could do this would be a Green Lantern ring or something adjacent to it, and everyone knows the Green Lantern can't kill.
Lantern, yeah, or a yellow lantern,
you know,
or something, yeah.
And the cosmic entity lurking out there is another. And if they do Parallax again, or Parallax possessing people, they gotta tiptoe around that, because that's one of the things that was terrible about the Ryan Reynolds one.
Mm-hmm.
But you can put, you know, you can have the seemingly unrelated murders, but all the end math and the MO is the same, and then you could have it's the Butcher or something, the entity for Rage going through people. You know, you can do a lot there. I think that'd be a cool way to go about doing it, and having them kind of have to work with or around police, you know, where their investigation is done as Guy Gardner and Hal Jordan, but the Lanterns have to work with police or something like that. I don't, it's tough to how that all actually work out.
Yeah.
But casting Hal Jordan, man, I don't know.
I actually we mentioned it before. We mentioned Glenn Powell possibly for Booster Gold, but I think maybe Glenn Powell as Hal Jordan, because who he played in Top Gun Maverick was fucking Hal Jordan. That's who
Glenn
he was.
Powell. Where do I know that name from?
He was the one. He's kind of like besides Tom Cruise, the big star of Top Gun Maverick. You've seen him in some other things. Like I said, he's in that new Devotion with Jonathan Majors. But in Top Gun Maverick, his character is Hal Jordan. Like that's he is Hal Jordan in that.
I haven't
movie.
seen it. I got to check that. I haven't seen it yet.
It's really good. It is U.S. Navy propaganda, but it is a really good film. Like it's.
I've seen plenty of that in my life. Trust me.
Yeah, exactly. He plays Hangman in that film, and he's the one who leaves his teammates behind. But like he's a daredevil. He's a hot dog. He is Hal Jordan in that film. Like he is exactly what you think Hal Jordan would be. So yeah, I think Glenn Powell would be a good choice there. But again, I think you can go no name on that one. You can just go no name. And I think it works. So build somebody's career around it. So another project going back to the Superman family is Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And this, unlike the Superman film, which is going to be like the very blue Boy Scout, balancing the life, whatever. Superman came to this world as an infant and was raised by the wonderful family, the Kents, and learned all about truth, justice, and etc. She grew up on a rock, a piece of floating, exploded Krypton, and watched horrific things happen to all the people she loves over the time till she was 14 years old before making it to Earth. So she's got some PTSD and she's got some issues and she's jaded. So it's going to be based on what's the run?
I think it's also called Woman of Tomorrow or something.
I think it is called Woman. I think the comic book run is also called Woman of Tomorrow. I'm trying to pull it back up just to make sure so I don't. Where did I lose it? Here it is. It's based on. Oh, it doesn't say here. It's based on Tom King? Tom King's run, and yeah. Tom King is the one writing the movie.
Oh yeah, sign me up.
By the way, Tom King is one of the. Tom King is one of the architects because DC. James Gunn is creating a kind of like a creator committee, what he's calling the architects of the DCU, and Tom King is one of them. So Tom King is going to have his hands on a lot of stuff that happens in this, and he is writing this film. So yes, please give it to me. 1,000 Ways to Sunday. I want to see it. There is no.
I'm interested to see who those other architects are. Who's working with them?
Yeah, I heard a couple of the names and I forgot who they were, but well, the writer for Watchmen is one of them, as well as the showrunner for Doom Patrol, who are doing the Waller series. They are also architects. Is it the same cast still? Do we know? No, we don't know if it will be the same Supergirl we're going to see in the Flash film, or if they're going to recast. This Gunn positive support zone or Snyder hate zone? It's a Gunn positive support zone. Like, no hate to Snyder. There's no need. It doesn't have to. You don't have to be one or the other. You can love Gunn and not hate on Snyder. You don't have to be a fan of Snyder either, though. Like, we're not saying that. Like, I'm not. I appreciate some things that Snyder did. I'm not a huge fan of what he did. I am definitely not a part of the Snyderverse cult. Make that clear.
I'll tell you that the best thing about Zack Snyder is he's a wonderful cinematographer.
Mm-hmm.
Yep, agreed with that.
And we got some amazing
storytelling is
amazing action scenes in those films. Amazing action scenes. It does say it's unknown whether we'll get Crypto to Superdog, which was also in that comic run by Tom King. Man, I hope we do a live action Crypto.
Yeah.
God, I hope so. So I don't know how the casting is going to go because I don't know if they're going to keep that same Supergirl or if they're going to do a different one. So we'll see. Is it weird to want a weaker Superman family? Yes, because it's fucking Superman family. They're not weak. No, give me God level powers, and then them having to. Because the thing is, here's the thing with Superman and the God level powers. That's far more of an internal battle than being a weaker Superman who can't stand up to somebody, or a weaker Supergirl who can't stand up to somebody, is a Supergirl or Superman who has to hold back at all times. Give me that Superman. A Superman who doesn't ever want to kill, so he has to hold back at all times, and thus loses fights because he's having to hold back. I meant Snyder hate Gun Zone, that's all, but now I thank God. Hi, I'm new here. Why can I not read that? Hold on a second. I meant Snyder hate Gun Zone, that's all, but now I understand, thank God. Hi, I'm new here. I'm sub B300 for you. Thank you, Derpy. Oh my God. Thank you very much. You're on my 300 sub on YouTube. Thank you. That's really awesome. Appreciate that very, very much, Derpy. Thank you, thank you, thank you.
Thank you so much.
I appreciate that. Yeah, there's. I can promise you on this channel, you're not gonna see hate for anything. We might not like something, but we're gonna give constructive criticism about it and not just shit on it for no reason.
Yep.
That being said, Snyder sucks. No, I'm kidding. No, I don't. I like the idea of god level superheroes, like Superman especially, and even Supergirl, because there's a much more interesting dynamic. Because the thing about DC characters versus Marvel characters, DC characters have actual weaknesses like kryptonite, yellow for a Green Lantern, stuff like that, because they're kind of above humanity. In Marvel's aspect, they all have human flaws. And so that's why they don't necessarily have like a weakness, like a disdain of magic, or a rock that hurts them or something like that. Give me god level DC heroes, but give me the conflict of them understanding their power and needing to hold everything back. Love the Superman quote from Justice League Unlimited. I feel like I live in a world made of cardboard. Always taking constant care not to break something, to break someone, never allowing myself to lose control, even for a moment, or someone could die. We need God tier Superman back, but he holds back most of the time. Absolutely. That's what I want. I want a Superman who literally has to walk on eggshells to survive, to exist. Because if he doesn't, if the man just, for some reason, tripped, he could kill an entire block. Like, he has to be that careful. That's a whole nother type of conflict, internal conflict to deal with. Yes, Derpy, we just became best friends. And I'm glad you're going to enjoy the channel. We do this every week on Thursday nights. We also, if you're a fan of wrestling, we also do a lot of wrestling content as well. We've got a lot more content coming in both the geek front, comic book front, the wrestling front, all of it. So it's all going to be around. So stay tuned to this channel. I want that kind of god tier. I want to see Supergirl come to this earth jaded and super, like, do you remember the animated film where Supergirl appeared on Earth and they tried everything they tried all these different ways to try to get her to learn to control her powers, but never really talked to her about it? Give me that. Give me her getting, like, basically kidnapped and sent to Themyscira to train, or Batman trying to keep an eye on her, or, like, all that stuff. I want that. I love that. Because that is also how DC is going to help stand away from Marvel. Without, like, you're not going to be able to compare them at that point. It's just going to be its own thing. Because it's a completely different way of characters having to deal with things. So, yeah, give me that, for sure. 1000%.
I think with the Supergirl too, you've got you have a unique opportunity, right? Because if you're already establishing that in the world that you're in, that Batman is already to Damian Wayne as a Robin, then you know that Superboy's got to be around too, right? Because unless the Titans are being formed post Nightwing, which is very strange. But if you have they haven't really touched it in the comic books. I thought that they were going to spitting out of Son of Kal-El, but there is a conversation that needs to be had, whether it's through the movies or the comics do it, where as Clark starts to kind of pull away from being the main Superman, why is Connor or I just blanked on Superman's other son's name.
Jonathan.
Yeah. Why are they automatically picked in all media thus far to become the new Superman when Supergirl had been around before both of them?
Mm-hmm.
So it's a story plot point that no one has touched yet, and they've gotten around it in the comic books currently, but they didn't really pull the trigger with it. They kind of, you kind of saw the seeds being planted for it. So I'd like to see that in some fashion.
So the question was asked, if we get a God tier Superman, who's his first villain? I think in Superman Legacy, I'd like to see, now somebody mentions the Elite hired by Lex Luthor, maybe. I think Lex Luthor has to be a part of it. You have to have that person who hates you're not human, you're not us, and you're just going to turn on us eventually kind of thing. I think you go Parasite. Because then you
given
also have
James Gunn's background, man, that fits the bill.
Yeah, but it also gives you an ability to weaken him for a bit, because Parasite actually can weaken Superman by absorbing his powers. So I think that works. Superman Legacy is definitely Superman All-Star, if not definitely Element vibes. Yeah, there's definitely Element vibes of it. Metallo might be another cool choice. I like that one as well, especially if you establish Kryptonite as being something that hurt. They kind of did, but it's not really ever been, I think, properly established as a proper weapon against Superman. It's just kind of there and they throw it on him, kind of thing.
Yeah.
And Derpy, I agree with your take on the Snyder fans about how they saw 300 in the Watchmen and begged Warner Brothers to put him in charge, and they were so quick to jump on that we have to have somebody like Kevin Feige that they just did it. But I think Parasite would be far more interesting than Metallo. Metallo's would be a cool one for sure. But I think that Parasite makes for a much more interesting character, especially coming from James Gunn writing it. I think Parasite would be really cool. I think Metallo can come down the line, or he could be kind of like kind of like how he was when again, going back to Lex Luthor as president, he was part of his Secret Service. Metallo was part of his, you could do that. So kind of he's there, he causes problems, but he's not really, in reality, Superman should beat Metallo every time almost instantly. The second Metallo shows up, he just should fly out into space and heat ray his fucking face off from 1,000 miles away. Whatever. But what if we get a scene between Bats and Soups about Supergirl being reckless and that makes her dangerous? That's exactly what I was talking about. Really don't want to start any Snyder hate, but other than 300, I've never really enjoyed his movies fully. His color grading irks me, and Superman shouldn't be morbid like he made him. Yeah, there's an understanding of characters that's been missed, and I really think that they're trying to reestablish what these characters are meant to be. Lex does need to be established, though, in this movie and have a presence. I agree. I think you have to have Lex Luthor in some way, but I want to see, if not President Luthor, leaning that way. Because, again, this is supposed to be early on in Superman's life, so maybe not have him be president right away, but leaning that way. And we have, not to get political, but we do have kind of a precedent over the last several years of something that's very similar, where people become cultists of politicians. Do that with Lex Luthor.
You get it all rolled into one. Start them. You have the LexCorp have a presence and have that background, because everyone hates your Bezoses and all that right now.
Mm-hmm.
And you can have him be that person, and then the transition into President Luthor, man, that would be a cool arc over time. And then having him possibly be the person that, Metallo is a byproduct of that, or something that he actively looks at needing to create a deterrent for Superman, and when it doesn't work physically with Metallo, then he tries to do it through policy as the president
Yeah.
or something like that, you know.
Yeah.
So yeah, that again, it's one of those things that kind of it all fall into place with the right, with the right story.
Yeah, I agreed. And Papa Fontes, I feel like we should get a really good fight for Superman, and Lex's hate is built over that. Yeah, absolutely.
Yes.
Now, maybe Superman World Tomorrow leans into the Herald of Darkseid role. I don't think we go that route just yet with her. I think you can build to that over a couple films with her being jaded and her being like, I'm not like you, Clark. I don't have all this sunshine and rainbows that you got to grow up with. I've seen for world, and they could lead to that. Cadmus is a must, in my opinion. I agree with that, Papa Font. There's a lot you can establish. And Cadmus, I think you can establish under Waller. Wait, isn't Cadmus already something that Waller brings up? Or am I thinking of the CW Waller? I might be thinking of the CW Waller.
I think that is CW Waller.
Okay, so Derpy just offered up Michael Fassbender as Luthor. What do you think?
Well,
That
He'd
sounds
probably-
amazing.
out of the park. You got to have someone real strong opposite him as Superman, though.
Yeah, you do.
Yeah.
And by the way, Derpy, I went ahead and gave you a subscribe on YouTube as well. I appreciate you joining us here. I believe Cadmus was vaguely referenced, or at least hinted at Black Adam. Oh, that's where I heard. Yeah, Black Adam. It was brought up, but that's going to be completely forgotten about. I have a feeling
Yeah.
because when they talked about all the projects that are going to be moving forward and the actors, The Rock is never mentioned. Black Adam's never mentioned. Even if they talk about Shazam, never mentioned. So I think that's just going to be like it never happened. You're welcome, Derpy. We've got two other projects that were announced that I want to get to. The first one I want to talk about is one that I'm super, super excited about. The Authority.
Yeah, that's going to be
So-
something very, very different, and
Yes.
and hit or miss with audiences for sure.
So the Authority is, imagine the Justice League doesn't go full injustice, but does threaten every government in the world that if you do step out of line, we will take over. They never do, because the government's cower to them, and they're good guys, they're benevolent, but they also believe in justice by any means necessary. Also, you would get the two main characters, Apollo and Midnighter, are the Superman and Batman analogies, are also lovers. So you get a wonderful LGBTQ representation out of the Authority as well. But again, they are benevolent. They are very good characters, but they also believe in justice overall and are willing to do whatever it takes to get there. They're also flawed characters. Like, one of the guys is a shaman, but he's also a massive drug dealer. Or not drug dealer, like drug user. Like, he's fully addicted to a lot of drugs. One of them is actually, I think, a demon, if I remember correctly. The one with wings. I can't remember her name. But yeah, it's basically the show The Boys on. Well, it's like The Boys, but if the superheroes weren't like evil behind the scenes. Like, imagine if Homelander legitimately was the Superman that he pretends to be to the public, and that's how he actually was. But he's still like, hey, if you step out of line, we're going to save the world by killing you. Like, we're going to take you out and we'll take over. We don't want to do it, but we know that we're going to be a lot better at this job than you are. So step out of line and see what happens. That's how the Authority works. I love that series, and I cannot wait to see it in live action.
I think it's going to be a really good. I really hope that it is, just because those characters deserve, to get a little bit of shine out there and something come their way. I think you do have to set it apart from The Boys, though, because the boys have got the evil superheroes thing kind of cornered, and you have to really convey the benevolence of, like, we really, really don't want to do this. If you have someone that keeps pushing, and then you see, okay, now that you have to be eliminated, you have to show the severe conflict that comes with that type of power and that type of choice.
But also
to set it apart from The Boys.
Yeah, exactly. But also imagine the conflict with Superman, because again, it's all in the same universe. So you've got so James Gunn Superman will never kill. He said that. Like that, his version is the true blue Boy Scout. And he's kind of considered old-fashioned in their thing going on right now. Now imagine him going up against the Authority, being like, you can't do this. You can't threaten people like that. It's like, look, we're on the same side, but we're just willing to step up because we know that we can do it better than they can. We can lead this entire world.
Right.
Because we have the power to do so. We're basically gods. But they're not like, it's not a god ego trip either. So then the conflict in his fate, in like Superman having to be like, they really do mean well, but this is it's not, it's all, you know, the road to hell is paved with good intentions kind of thing. Like, so that excites the hell out of me. And Peter Safran, he described the Authority as this. Think of Jack Nicholson in A Few Good Men when he says they know that you want them on the wall, or at least they believe that. It's like every government fears them and wants them dead, even the ones that they're protecting. Right. Because they can't. They literally can't do anything. Yeah, because they can't control them. It's like we kind of got that in Man of Steel. Remember at the end scene with the drone? He's like, I'm just a boy from Kansas, but you're not going to control me. I'm not a weapon. Right. You know, that's what the Authority is. So the Man of Steel was kind of close to Apollo more so than Superman. Oh yeah. In the way he acted. They were definitely heading into that territory for sure. So yeah, it gives me hope. I mean, if they're able to, if the script works, they find the right director, they cast it correctly. Hey, that should be really good. I think it'll be something new. I kind of looked at, the lineup that he's got for this first phase, or the first chapter of the DC Universe movies that he's fully in control of. The choices for some of these shows and movies outside of the main eventers and stuff, the ambition for some of these characters that they have is closer to like when Marvel started getting into phase 2 and started putting out characters that were not very well publicly known, and the Creature Commandos, Booster Gold, and stuff like that. That's getting into territory that a lot of people don't know anything about. Just like with Guardians of the Galaxy, just like with Ant-Man, just like with Captain Marvel. So it's a lot. It's very ambitious, and I really, really, really hope that it all works out for them and that they're able to produce quality movies, because DC needs a win, like real bad, for movies. Yeah, I agree. But speaking of kind of out there, the final thing on the list is Swamp Thing, a full-on horror film that will be the end of DC's Chapter 1. They're going to investigate the dark origins of the character. It's definitely going to be a very horrific film. If anything, we got a tease of that from the HBO series that was oh so good. Swamp Thing is just one of those characters. The body dysmorphia, the body horror of it all, the fact that he's not a Swamp Thing. Yes, he's been part of Justice League Dark, but the reality is he doesn't care about good or bad. He cares about saving the planet. Yeah, and so everybody's bad in his eyes, because they're all stepping on grass, they're all hearting up, they're all littering, they're all building new buildings, which means taking down trees and covering up land. Everybody's bad. So if everybody dies, he doesn't care. So it's a different type of character altogether, and I cannot wait. James Mangold is throwing his hat in the ring for that one. Yes, James Mangold directed that. I'm all for it. Please, for the love of God, give me that. I would love that. If this is another, if James Gunn decides to write another one, go ahead and write Swamp Thing. Because oh my God, yes please. And honestly, I think when it comes down to Swamp Thing, because it will obviously be a CGI character who is once turned to Swamp Thing, that's it. He's just Swamp Thing. You look for, and you don't have to get an actor to play the part before he turns, but then you get a major voice actor to do Swamp Thing from then on out. And there you go. what's his guy? The guy who does the "You're in Good Hands with Allstate."
Yeah.
Get that guy. Ron Perlman.
Oh yeah,
Ron
that would
Perlman
be
to
really
do
good.
it. Yeah, just get somebody
yeah.
with. What's his? He voiced Surtur in Ragnarok. Clancy.
Oh, Clancy Brown.
Clancy Brown. Give me Clancy Brown as Swamp Thing. Please.
Dude, Christopher Judge.
Christopher Judge. Oh.
Oh yeah.
Oh, that's it. Give me Christopher Judge as Swamp Thing. And then let him act. Let him do the motion capture. He's perfect. He just did 2 of the greatest games ever made in God of War with motion capture. Let him, yes, perfect casting. Christopher Judge, end of story. Nobody else. Christopher Judge as Swamp Thing. Yes, please.
Yeah.
Because just think about Kratos covered in green. Just think about Kratos in your head and things he has said about not care. Like, go back to God of War 2018, not God of War Ragnarok, where he became more caring. Go back to God of War 2018. And at the beginning of that game, when he's talking about not caring about anybody, and then just cover him in green moss. That's fucking Swamp Thing. Hands down.
Our viewers just witness.
I just
Vince having an orgasm.
Just like I. Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely like. Yeah, absolutely, 1000%.
Yeah, Swamp Thing. I mean, if they need to learn anything from the DC, what was it, DC Ultimate series, or which became HBO, I think.
Yeah.
That ran for. Did that get a second season, or it was only the one because of the?
It was
only the one, right?
Yeah, it was always too expensive.
There was an accounting error, and it was too expensive, so they had to can it. If you take anything from that, you take the body horror, and you take the. Like when the dead body is on that table in the autopsy room, and it just starts like John Carpenter's The Thing, it opens up and vines are shooting everywhere and it's coming alive. That's what it needs. Like you need that. And James Gunn, if James Gunn writes it, James Gunn can direct that one, and it will be terrifying.
Yeah, I mean, like you give me James
to this
Gunn.
day, there are people who won't watch Slither because of the stuff that he's done, and even that Peacemaker reminded them of. So he can do the body horror and all the nasty stuff that comes with that.
You give me James Gunn writing and directing it. You give me Christopher Judge as Swamp Thing, and I'm gonna accept that film. Just please give it to me, for the love of God. But his end game is going to be the Kingdom Come adaptation, which yes, I do want to talk about that because we don't know what the rest of Chapter 1 is. Because he said this is only part of Chapter 1. He has a Chapter 2 and 3. And like while he hasn't admitted it, the fact that he keeps putting the image out there, I think his end game is to get to Kingdom Come. Which to me is the greatest graphic novel of all time. That story, between the art of Alex Ross on every panel, instead of just a cover, which that alone, I have a 10-foot by 6-foot mural on my wall of Alex Ross's Justice League. Like, I love that man. I think he's the greatest comic book artist. And the fact that we were able to get a whole series out of him for panel, and the story that it told, which, by the way, I already have, you can tell that he is building to that, because what is Superman Legacy? Dealing with his truth, justice, and American way and not killing as old-fashioned. What happened in Kingdom Come that made him retire? When the Joker showed up and blew up the Daily Planet, killing Lois and Perry White and Jimmy Olsen, Superman didn't kill him, just captured him and arrested him. Then Grodd comes down and blows him in half, and the crowd goes nuts. Because somebody finally stepped up and killed the Joker. So Superman retired. Because his method was far too old-fashioned. That was the kickoff of Kingdom Come. So obviously, the fact that he's writing that version of Superman tells me that's what he's building to. I want that so bad. And if he can keep this going and he can make this work, and if everything we've seen here is successful, we're going to get Kingdom Come eventually. That will be the end game of this.
Oh yeah.
And I cannot wait. Which might be why we're getting Paradise Lost, because Wonder Woman plays a humongous part in Kingdom Come. So he's got to find a way to bring her back. But you got to find a way to make her more also jaded. Because the Wonder Woman in Kingdom Come is very jaded. Same with Injustice. You have to find one. Gal Gadot's Wonder Woman through the Snyderverse is not really the warrior she says she is. We especially saw that.
Did you get the opportunity?
Yeah, we especially saw that in the Wonder Woman 84, that garbage film.
Yeah, there's a lot of problems with that.
Was terrible. So we especially saw she's not a warrior. But if you show a Game of Thrones-esque Civil War in Themyscira building to what the reason that Wonder Woman gets built out of clay in the first place kind of thing, maybe then that makes sense for why we get that series. Because it sets the groundwork for a Wonder Woman who is a warrior, who is going to be trained, her mother's side wins the Civil War, and that history is going to be instilled in her. Okay, so here's a question. You ever think that James Gunn convinces Feige to do a Marvel versus DC crossover movie?
I can't see Disney letting it happen. Disney's going to be the problem and not Kevin Feige.
If Bob Iger is still there when this gets approached, I see it happening. Because Bob Iger is literally he gave Kevin the keys to the kingdom. If Bob Iger is gone again and re-retires like he wants to, Ginger Superman versus Ali movie. Yes, please. Yeah, I'm all for that.
Bring back Will Smith to play.
Yeah, bring back Will Smith to play. Just don't mention his wife's name.
Yeah.
But if Bob Iger is still the CEO of Disney when they approach the situation and they get it on the books at least before he retires, it can happen. I think Bob Iger is open to that. Anybody else in that CEO chair, you're probably right, Disney blocks that from happening. Unless Kevin can convince them. It depends on who gets the CEO chair. But I think that would work. Except who wins? How do you do it? Who gets to go over? How do you book it? Let's fantasy book it, CPG. CPG, let's fantasy book it.
But you go, no, I tell you exactly how it works. It's how it is with any time there's superheroes together. What is it? What do the guys on the Weekly Planet say? That they punch each other for a bit and then they're mates.
Yeah.
It's gonna be like that. You're gonna have, if you have an inevitable showdown between the Justice League and the Avengers. I mean, power wise and what they can all do, the Justice League just murders them. There's no, It's the whole concept of how your heroes are booked in each universe.
I think Superman solos the entire MCU.
Yeah, just on based. If you go true God power Superman, there's just no way, because all of the things in Marvel are characters have real human flaws and they're relatable in some way, and they all at one point, if not their entire lives, just been human, and then they come across something that they eat moldy peanut butter and they can shoot it out of their hands. Where in the way that DC's characters are written is you have these unattainable powers. You cannot replicate the same thing twice, right? That's why there's not 19,000 Supermans, is because you need a specific set of circumstances that you have to be Kryptonian. You have to have this, or you clone him, but there's severe problems with all the clones they've had of Superman. So the story, it makes sense. The only person who's ever ascended to the level of the Justice League who's human outright, is without the help of really anything, is Batman. And that's supposed to be the God amongst men allegory for that whole team. So it's very difficult. You have to find a common middle ground there, and I don't think one can be reached where everyone is satisfied. I think that Disney blocks it outright, regardless if Bob Iger is there, if Kevin Feige wants to do it, because it's Disney would have to give money to the only other game in town.
I think the only reason they might block it is because don't forget Disney worked with Warner Brothers before in the Who Framed Roger Rabbit. But Warner
Yeah,
Brothers,
but every time they've tried to do that since then,
Warner Brothers has dicked him over. Warner Brothers dicked him over on that movie and then has dicked him over since. So
yeah,
it might actually be
they're-
Warner
they're-
Brothers who blocks it.
yeah,
'Cause
or
Warner
yeah, I mean
Brothers-
it could go
yeah.
both ways. Yeah,
Yeah, it could actually be Warner Brothers that blocks it. So that's the bigger thing I got to worry about. Because while Kevin Feige is in charge of all of Marvel Entertainment, he does still have to answer to Disney, but he does have a little bit more power. James Gunn is in charge of the entertainment side of things, but he doesn't have the comics. He doesn't have the toy lines. He's not in any. He's metaphorically in Kevin Feige's role for DC, but he's really not. And he still answers to a lot of people above him. And now that Discovery's on board, and don't ask me what the fuck they're doing. Yeah, I think it's actually Warner Brothers that probably blocks that more so than Disney, but you're right, Disney would also... It would be really hard to figure out a way to establish that where Superman doesn't just come in and just solos everybody by himself. And somebody mentioned, well, that's until we get a live-action Sentry. But even a live-action Sentry, I think, is going to be depowered from the comics. Because
they're going to have to, yeah.
You bring in a live-action Sentry right now, because don't forget, Sentry isn't always a good guy. He solos everybody. So, the fact that, Thanos gave them so many problems, and he is a weaker Darkseid. I guess I know in the comics recently they've done a lot of things where they've made him possibly more powerful than Darkseid. I'm talking about commonly known Thanos, even with the Infinity Gauntlet. I still think
the only thing they've got is Captain Marvel. That could maybe.
Yeah, but then, the Captain Marvel character of 838 got bodied by Wanda. So,
right.
There's so many characters in DC, that means Zatanna could body her. It's just Constantine could probably body her. If that's
Constantine, Constantine would just fuck everybody up on his own right. Dr. Fate is Doctor Strange on steroids. There's no...
Yeah.
But that's literally how the characters are written. There are very little human relatable things that are written into DC's characters. You watch them for the spectacle that they are. They are at this literally Mount Olympus they built in space with the Watchtower in some iterations. The whole point of Marvel's heroes is that you can't have their powers, but you can aspire to have the same values as them. Where DC, you can't. And there really aren't any characteristics that are relatable to you, the reader. It's just the purest form of fantastic storytelling. So you're dealing with approaching this particular superhero media from two very different angles, and it's to put them in the same room. It's a lot. I mean, even in the DC versus Marvel comic event they did in the '90s. There was all kinds of this person's depowered because of this. Access did this that made this happen.
Yeah.
And it was a lot because I think Superman knocked out the Hulk in one punch. I don't even think it was a fight.
I think in the first fight he did, but in the second fight, because Hulk came back and then Hulk almost beat Superman to death. But I think it was he got depowered. It was a weird thing. I mean, I only want it because I want there to be a film of Marvel versus DC, and then there to be a second film of the Amalgamation Universe. I just want that. Give me a campy Amalgamation Universe film. Give me Dark Claw and
Super Soldier and Iron Lantern.
Yeah, give me all that, please. Doctor Strange Fate. Come on.
I think that would actually work better as an episodic HBO Max series.
Yeah, put that on
something.
HBO Max. So do the movie and then or even maybe do it animated. I don't know. Something. That'd be cool.
Yeah, that would be.
But all in all, as we're going to wrap up the episode, starting with you, Kel, what are your thoughts on what James Gunn is doing, and do you have hope for DC in the future?
I do have more hope now that since James Gunn's been in charge of things and he's teasing all that we talked about tonight, there's a lot of stuff I'm looking forward to, some things that I'll check out, even though I'm not that interested in it. But I do have hope that DC will finally get on a good track of live action entertainment going into the future.
CPG, same question.
I think you need to keep James Gunn's involvement in anything outside of, being your main storyteller and really organizing all this, to play to his strengths and know where to put him and where he needs to not be the director and not have complete say over how some of these movies go and other rather than story. So really cultivate a good room of directors. I'm very, very excited for some of the characters that people aren't familiar with. I think the Authority is very ambitious. I think the Lanterns idea is very ambitious, and I think that this is really the groundwork for a very big and very ambitious universe. And if it's done correctly, Marvel has competition for the first time in 15 years now.
Mm-hmm.
So it's or 12 years now. It's looking to be serious if it can be done correctly, and I'm excited for it. I just hope that they don't run James Gunn into the ground over it.
That's my biggest concern too. I agree with both your sentiments on this, and my biggest fear, like I said, is running James Gunn into the ground and him trying to do too much. But the fact that they've already said he may not direct the Superman film because he's already got so much on his plate does give me some hope that he does realize that I can't do it all, so I will have to step back. So that's a good sign. At the same time, if he does direct that film and he ends up doing it well, I'll eat the crow just like you, CPG, that okay, he proved us wrong, he got it. But I am kind of with you on that, like, maybe it's not his best forte as a Superman film. Write it, sure, but yeah. Because this is, then again, he is the guy who wrote Scooby-Doo and directed it. But even then, that took a bit of a horror turn. That did not help my cause at all. So maybe don't do it. Ladies and gentlemen, that's going to do it for the Geeks and Noobs today. Once again, if you're watching this on YouTube, please like and subscribe. If you're on Twitch, hit that follow button. If you can subscribe, if you're feeling ever so generous, please do so. Also, if you have Prime, you can use that. We are actually going to raid our sister channel, the Panda Wrestling Company. If you guys could stick around and go give them a follow, I'd greatly appreciate it. And we will see you guys next week. And I got to get to my buttons. Here we go. All right. See you guys next week.